Fellow traders and investors, 1 year ago today, many accounts were at all-time highs. Most OTC securities were at or near all-time highs as the combination of free money and free time accumulated into the greatest rally this market has ever witnessed. Many were wondering if times could get any better. It truly seems as if the uptrend would continue indefinitely. To many new to the market, it must have seemed as if this business was very simple. The complexity spoken of by many veterans seemed like scare tactics enacted by bitter old-timers, angry that a new breed of trader has stepped in and stolen their spotlight. This optic seemed obvious even up until late summer of last year. It seemed as if this momentum that we had was perpetual. Inexperienced rookies, disguised as professionals, told the masses to load up on empty shells in the hopes that a large private entity was all but guaranteed to roll into these shells, guaranteeing riches to all that were wise enough to accumulate before the masses. Many were waiting on rule changes enacted by the SEC, expecting an immediate boost to the market due to consolidation of securities, leaving only suitable or real companies on the exchange to be traded. Ideas that sounded great to most, but in hindsight were tragically destructive to so many who lacked the tools to adjust to a rapidly changing dynamic. Now I've listened to the cries, and we've all heard them. The OTC is dead. And unfortunately for many, it is. This is now a market that demands understanding of technical analysis, a sound grasp of your emotions, and the ability to cut losses and take profits quickly. Failing to read company filings and being able to understand what to look for is paramount to suicide. As much as I would love to be an optimist, I can't help but feel as if the casualties of this bear market will be significant and long-lasting. Many who are not prepared to withstand a sustained downtrend will end up being a statistic belonging to the well over 90% of wannabe traders who step into this battlefield full of chutzpah and big dreams, only to be ultimately consumed. Now, this may seem pessimistic, speaking as if the cries of the OTC is dead have come to fruition, and again, to many it will. Twitter, which I never cared for, has become an absolute deterrent, where liars, fakes, phonies who don't know the difference between an 8K and a 10Q are posting miscellaneous and outdated DD and telling the masses to buy and hold to get rich. A poisonous place where every distraction known to man exists to peel your attention away from your objectives. FinTwit, in my opinion, is no longer a good place to be or provide sound ideas like it once did. At least not without a cost, in my opinion. Nonetheless, not all hope is lost. Throughout all of the chaos, there are still opportunities that are available. Opportunities that can be traded multiple times on the front side of a move. Most of these moves, given the right share structure, lack of dilution, and the proper news, can rally for multiple days or possibly even multiple weeks, and can be unbelievably profitable. No, hope is not lost. It has only been minimized and will only be available on a consistent basis for those that are duly prepared. To those who believe they're prepared and equipped to succeed, yet still solely rely on a handful of gurus to generate every trade and idea, you will simply be washed away like sand on a beach during low tide. To those who take pride in this business, those who still see a silver lining in this very dark cloud have sharpened their tools and added multiple skills to the repertoire to make sure they are not a statistic. Traders, we are at a precipice. I will reiterate, I do see a silver lining, but landmines are still buried under every possible step. Take a look around the world today. We have unchecked inflation, and do not let anyone deceive you. The current Ukraine-Russia conflict has very little to do with our current inflation. Rather, it has been the nearly $23 trillion added to our national debt under the last 3 administrations. This conflict may have dire consequences to the global economy going forward, but it will ultimately be used as a scapegoat for a collapsing dollar. Now, we have watched a hapless, incompetent old man lie through his teeth on nearly every subject touched upon in last week's State of the Union speech, beating the drums of war with a nuclear power nonetheless. Now, with Putin seemingly preparing to move into Kiev and the West being the antagonistic West that it is, this has a chance to escalate into a very much larger war. Be prepared for that. Now, geopolitical turmoil aside, we're still dealing with draconian measures that were intended to cripple small businesses and families in the name of a man-made virus on record. Putting politics aside, we have some rough waters to navigate. If we plan on sustaining in this unprecedented era in which we live, so we have to be prepared. If we plan on sustaining in this unprecedented era, we must be prepared, and I will reiterate that. Now, a fun little fact. The United States of America has been in existence as a legitimate republic for 246 years, since 1776. And in the last 2 years, 80% of the US dollar in circulation has been printed. Now, that's over the last 2 years. Let that sink in for a moment. And again, I'm not trying to sound like an alarmist. Rather, I'm trying to open your eyes to the storm we face as Americans over the next decade or less. Not all despair. Opportunities will present themselves. We just have to be better equipped to maneuver in such an environment. Through these times, we must understand that we cannot simply just trade to trade. We must have a setup that we are familiar with, that has been back-tested for its efficiency. Trade this setup with a strategy that includes risk-reward. This also must include your supports, your resistance, a plan to cut losses, and a plan to take profits. Sometimes no trade is better than a bad trade. Capital preservation is a principal priority, where cutting losses is essential and taking profits into strength is paramount. The sectors I see that have massive opportunities in the near to midterm, any commodities, oil and gas, silver and gold, cybersecurity, crypto, defense contractors. Personally, and I must reiterate, I am not a financial advisor. Everything that I'm saying is my opinion, but I am buying silver, physical silver that you can hold. I believe that this will offer some sort of security for a declining dollar and inflation. I encourage you to pay off debt. As much debt as you can eliminate, the better off you'll be. Now, I am by no means sitting before you as a self-proclaimed expert, but I do feel I have analyzed the multiple fronts we face. I have triaged the significance and formulated what I feel to be a sound plan to minimize exposure while still putting constant or consistent profits in your pocket. We must be nimble, not cumbersome, practical, not pompous, and yes, pessimistic, not preoccupied with the naive notion that that bull run we had last year is somehow how things are supposed to be. Now, as a nation, we already have our necks on the chopping block. America as we know it, or at least how it was meant to be, is dead. The American dream for most may be dead. Washington, Capitol Hill, state legislators, and even the president knows this. They just won't tell you. Well, I will. Again, say what you will, but our lawmakers and elected officials have participated in a complete self-sabotaging way of doing business. And the core principles of sound financial practices have been alienated long ago. This self-sabotage has trickled down to the public. Debt has become all-encompassing, a dark cloud hovering over every one of us. Now, these events in Eastern Europe have been orchestrated for nearly 2 decades by banking oligarchs, oil oligarchs, open society NGOs, the World Economic Forum, the Council on Foreign Relations, the United Nations, NATO, and yes, U.S. officials from Congress and the State Department, all the way up to the Commander-in-Chief. Now, this unfortunate catastrophe may eventually spiral out of control. Into chaos, and out of this chaos, a new order will emerge. The political order aside, a new economy will emerge, where automation will trump manpower. Artificial intelligence will trump human intellect. And if you haven't secured your retirement by the time this revolution arises, and you plan on working your way to a dignified existence in retirement, think again. The cards are stacked against us. The black swan event has already been triggered. Every bull market needs an excuse for a major correction. Washington, D.C. and every other G8 economy is a house of cards right now, absolutely propped up by an immeasurable amount of debt. Traders are not much different. Margin is at near all-time highs while equity is evaporating. Over 80% of the money managed on Wall Street is managed by people under 30 years old. people with absolutely no real world experience. People that were in grade school the last time the market had a true correction. And that was during the dot-com bubble of early 2000s and the late 90s. Listen to me. If you haven't heard a thing I've said, listen to this. Coincidences do not exist. Nothing happens on a global stage by accident. A storm is coming. A storm in the likes we have not witnessed as professionals. You must understand this and be prepared. These are once-in-a-lifetime events that if you are not positioned properly, you're going to be doomed. And if you are positioned properly, you can gain wealth beyond belief. Real assets, not fake assets, is what you need to be accumulating at this time. If you can't physically touch it, you do not own it. Remember that. If you cannot physically hold it, touch it, you do not own it. The biggest transfer of wealth in the history of mankind is occurring right underneath everyone's nose. People forfeiting tangible, real assets for imaginary assets in the cloud. Position yourself. Understand what's going on and be prepared. And I know I veered a little off track and, I just feel this had to be addressed. We need to wise up what is happening. Everything the television tells you, take with great skepticism. Understand what agenda is afoot. Who are the players that can push this agenda, and who are the players that can implement this agenda? Set that aside and focus how you can take advantage of the overreactions in the market caused by this agenda. Understanding the situation doesn't change the situation, but it does put you in a unique position to take advantage of the situation. As for us as OTC traders, opportunities may not be as abundant as they were before. They may not be as easily to take advantage of as they were before, but they do and will exist, and you must educate yourself. You must learn technical analysis, as it will be all the more important to your success going forward. Understand what to look for when you're reading filings. Understand what sectors and what type of news is working at that particular moment. Block out the noise of detractors. Stand firm in your convictions, and yet never fall in love with any particular stock. Look at everything with an objective eye. Be skeptical. Things that seem too good to be true are too good to be true in most cases. And do not be afraid to cut losses when a trade goes against you or your thesis goes against you or changes. Understand what is working and stick within those parameters. The plays I am looking for must consist of a few distinct qualities, and the more of these qualities a play possesses plays a role in my decisions on how to develop a trade plan for each particular security. Share structure plays an important role. Obviously, the less shares available in the float, the easier it is for the security to run. Now, management also plays a key role in a play I plan on holding for more than a few days. Dilution cannot be tolerated. Do not let the company raise funds by dumping shares on your head. And lastly, a catalyst is absolutely paramount. Now, although some plays work on technicals alone, as that plays a pertinent role in OTC trading and always has, a catalyst is typically the spark that gets the technical gears grinding. When an idea, as the bell rings, when an idea consists of the right sector, a good share structure, no dilution, sound management, and catalysts, you have a perfect recipe for a multi-day or multi-week run. Also, it is important to make the determination prior to buying any security what your plans are for the security. Have an exit plan prior to entry. Let no one tell you that the OTC is dead, for it might just be for those who proclaim it. But with the proper know-how and determination, there is no other market on earth where someone with modest means can become a millionaire in a rather short period of time, especially relative to working a 9 to 5 till you drop dead. The OTC is alive and well, but for only of those who put in the work like us. Thank you very much.